Hello friends, in this video we'll be taking a look at the autosomal DNA results, predicted phenotype, traits, and even ethnicity calculator results with my own ethnicity calculator of an Anatolian Neolithic farmer from Turkey, from Barcin. So this individual is male, his mitochondrial lineage is J1, his Y DNA is G2A, and he is from this location in Turkey. So he belonged to a group of people which came into Europe and eventually sort of replaced all the hunter-gatherers who used to inhabit Europe before. They replaced hunter-gatherers because farming allowed them to build big communities and big families, and overall, it's just farming is more efficient than hunting and gathering. So they kind of replaced all the hunter-gatherers, and Europe for a very long time was entirely inhabited by these farmers, by these people who came, who had ancestry from Anatolian Neolithic farmers, such as this individual right here. Let's go ahead and explore his result with my trait predictor. We're going to start with noshacot. So with noshacot, this is what he scores. He seems to be scoring light brown or dark brown eyes. Very low likelihood of any eye color lighter than pretty much hazel. I mean, it's if you combine all of the percentages for green, blue with a neighbor center, and blue together, that's going to be like 0. I don't know, 6%. It looks like he's got brown hair. Once again, brown or black hair actually, because 23% of likelihood of black hair is significant. So it looks like he's got brown hair, he's got light brown eyes, and he's got light or fair skin. However, there's also a pretty significant likelihood of intermediate or olive skin for him. So either light or fair or intermediate or olive skin tone. This is his predicted eye color. And in terms of the hair texture, he's actually predicted to have kinky hair. Really unusual, really atypical. And by the way, this is adjusted based on ethnicity. So based on what you score for the ethnic calculator portion, this score will be adjusted a little bit, not like extremely, but it's going to be a little bit adjusted based on ethnicity. Let's go ahead and check what he scores for the ethnic calculator portion actually, because if it's like Sub-Saharan African, then that might explain. No, it actually isn't Sub-Saharan African. It looks like he's scoring typical result for a farmer. He's closest to Neolithic farmer from Britain. This Iranian individual from Iran, it's a modern individual, just one person. Then Pinarbasi hunter-gatherer from Anatolia. It looks like a very typical score for a Anatolian Neolithic farmer, and it's definitely not African. So I think he's just scoring kinky hair because that's what he's predicted to have. That's just kind of how his autosomal genotypes are. That's just kind of how it is. Very interesting. Definitely an unusual and atypical phenotype for a Anatolian Neolithic farmer. Write in the comments, do you think he had kinky hair? Do you think it's possible? At this point, I've run a couple of Anatolian Neolithic farmer samples, and this is the first one with kinky hair. So maybe there's gotta be outliers in every population and stuff like that. Let's go ahead and check his phenotype S&Ps. It looks like he's heterozygous for blue eye haplotype 1. However, he's got this genotype, which means he does not have blue eye haplotype 1. Okay. No blue eye haplotype 2. However, heterozygous genotype in this variation, which is typically predictive of having intermediate coloring and is predictive of having heterozygous genotype in blue eye haplotype 2 as well. GG hair, which leads to darker coloring and is predictive of not having blue eye haplotype 2, and no BEH3 and no BEH4. Alright, so he's got some variations for lighter pigmentation, such as the T allele here, and I think it's the T allele in this variation as well in BEH1. BEH1 I think is a CT polymorphism, right, where the C is the ancestral and the T is the derived. I don't exactly remember. It's been a while since I was coding this stuff. Alright, let's go ahead and check his polygenic risk scores. So for the polygenic risk scores, it looks like he's scoring a below average score for schizophrenia, a below average score for type 2 diabetes, and an above average score for Alzheimer's. For the cancer section, it looks like he's got 1 risk variance for breast cancer out of 12. Slightly higher in terms of the quality of the sample, slightly higher quality sample. 14 risk variance for testicular cancer out of 20, quite atypical, a little bit high. 1 risk variance for celiac disease out of 12, which is pretty typical. 0 risk variance for GSS out of 4, once again pretty typical, and 8 risk variance for Crohn's out of 24, which is definitely not typical. That's really high actually. So he's got a lot of risk variance for Crohn's. We're gonna go ahead and explore what he scores for the monogenic traits. We're gonna go ahead and explore his monogenic genotypes for Crohn's in a little bit. So let's keep in mind we have to talk about Crohn's a little bit in this video. So it looks like he's got GG in chromosomal met variation, meaning warrior genotype, also warrior genotype in MAOA, which means higher activity of both COMT and MAOA enzymes, quicker breakdown of dopamine, less dopamine in the system. He's also got AAA here, or 2-derived no-go learner variants in the reduced spirophenolidine pro. So not only does he have less dopamine in the system, he's also got less dopamine D2 receptor sites in the brain. So I think he might have ADHD or something like that, or his personality might be that he like procrastinates a lot and can't find the motivation to do things because of these genotypes, because of warrior genotype in MAOA, warrior genotype in COMT, and also having a lot of no-go learner, 2-derived no-go learner variants in the reduced spirophenolidine pro. There is something that balances this result out, which is this genotype, which increases the number of dopamine D2 receptor sites in the brain. So this does balance the scale a little bit. He's got GG in TAC1, which is really really typical, really good for him. Once again, it does balance the scale a little bit, because if he had the A allele on TAC1, it would probably result in him having a much higher score for ADHD. Once again, in this case, he's got a slightly lower risk of ADHD. For 5-HT-CLPR, it looks like he's got typical genotype and basically short form 5-HT-CLPR, just like most people. So no decreased risk of depression, no European lactose persistence mutation. If you took an ancestry DNA test, they would say, hey, you're supposed to be lactose intolerant. But everybody who's not a European gets the same result here. Nobody aside from Europe has the European lactose persistence mutation, obviously. For the empathy gene, it looks like he's got 2 variants for higher levels of empathy and OXTR, really good to see. No type 1 diabetes. He actually has 2 copies of this H63Z variant and likely suffers from hemochromatosis, which is really atypical, really uncommon to see. So he actually has the Celtic curse. I'm not sure what group hemochromatosis variants originate from. I'm not exactly sure, because I've even done a Cro-Magnon individual who had a variant for hemochromatosis here. Yeah, so I'm not really sure what population these variants come from. Maybe it's something really old and really ancient that everybody has. For Alzheimer's, it looks like he does not have any risk variants for Alzheimer's in APOE, really good to see. For myopia, he actually has the G allele in this variation, which is really atypical, really uncommon. And the G allele here leads to lower risk of myopia and better eyesight. He carries the micro P mutation, which is very interesting. But I noticed that with 1240K files, I see heterozygous genotype here quite often. So maybe it's a fault of the file. It's a fault of the way they did the genotyping for this sample. So I don't think he really carries the micro P mutation. So don't worry about it. No fat gene variants in FTOs. RS9939609, really good, really typical. Better performing muscles, likely sprinter than endurance athlete. No East Asian EDAR, really typical. We gotta get to Crohn's. Let's get to Crohn's. For testicular cancer, everything doesn't look so good. So for testicular cancer, he's got some genotypes which lead to higher odds of testicular cancer. For leukemia, it looks like he's got some genotypes that lead to increased risk of leukemia. But let's get to Crohn's. So none of the 3 most important variations for Crohn's were found in the file. That's actually good to see. That's actually really good to see. That means that the risk variants that he scored none of them were the important ones. So maybe it's not so bad for him in terms of the risk score for Crohn's. So you see, like here for Crohn's, 8 out of 24. But the most important variations are here, and none of them are found in the file. So that's really good to see. Alright. Thanks for watching until the end. Leave a like and subscribe. You can download the sample in the description of the video.